The massive space station floated above a gray planet that had no name, only a number. Prion 4, the aliens called it. A neutral world where the five most powerful species in the galaxy came together to make decisions that changed the fates of billions. Ambassador Park stood alone in the center of the great chamber. She was a small woman with short black hair and calm eyes. Around her, rising up like a mountain of seats, sat the representatives of the Galactic Concord. Thousands of alien faces looked down at her. Some had scales, some had fur, some had no faces at all, just smooth surfaces with glowing spots where eyes should be. She had been Earth's voice in this chamber for 12 years. She had negotiated trade deals. She had smiled at creatures who found human teeth disturbing. She had learned to read body language that had no body she recognized. But today, she knew something was wrong. The chamber was too quiet. The aliens were not arguing with each other as they usually did. They were united, and that unity was pointed at her like a weapon. The Supreme Commander rose from his seat at the highest point of the chamber. His name was, and his species had ruled this part of the galaxy for 40,000 years. They were tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to flow like liquid when they moved. Their eyes were completely black, showing no emotion that humans could read. Spoke, and his voice filled the chamber without any need for technology to make it louder. His species had evolved to command. The Galactic Concord has reached a decision regarding the human species, he said. This decision is unanimous. There will be no appeal. Felt her heart beating faster, but she kept her face still. She had learned that from themselves. Never show fear, never show surprise. Humanity has violated the natural order of this galaxy, continued. Your species is only 200 years old in space. You are infants, yet you spread across the stars like a disease. You breed without control. You take worlds that belong to older, wiser species. You refuse to accept your place. Wanted to speak, but she knew the rules. When the Concord made a declaration, you listened until they were finished. The Concord has decided that humanity must be corrected, said. You will surrender all colonies outside your home system. You will reduce your population to acceptable levels. You will accept Concord observers on your to ensure you follow these requirements. If you refuse, you will be destroyed. The chamber was silent, could hear her own breathing. You have 30 standard cycles to respond, finished. This session is ended. The aliens began to leave. None of them looked at her. None of them spoke to her. She had become invisible, already dead in their minds. Walked slowly back to her ship. Her hands were shaking, but only a little. She had a message to send. 12 hours later, Fleet Admiral sat in the command center of Earth's military headquarters. He was an old man with white hair and a face full of lines from years of hard decisions. He had fought in 3 wars, all of them against other humans. He had hoped to retire without fighting a 4th. The transmission from Ambassador Park played on the large screen in front of him. Around him sat his most trusted officers. General, who commanded all ground forces. Vice Admiral, who led the space fleet. Colonel, the youngest person in the room, who specialized in unconventional warfare. They watched deliver his ultimatum. They watched the alien faces, so confident, so certain that humanity would bend. When the transmission ended, no one spoke. The silence stretched out like a held breath. Then Admiral began to laugh. It started small, just a shake of his shoulders. Then it grew. He laughed like he had just heard the funniest joke of his long life. Tears formed in his eyes. General looked at Vice Admiral. Then he started laughing too. Soon, the entire room was filled with the sound of laughter. Officers who had faced death many times, who had seen the worst that war could offer, laughed until they could not breathe. An alien observer drone, hidden in the corner of the room, recorded everything and sent it back to the Concord. The aliens who watched did not understand. Were humans broken? Had fear made them lose their minds? Admiral finally stopped laughing. He wiped his eyes with his sleeve and stood up slowly. His officers grew quiet, waiting for him to speak. "They think," he said, his voice still shaking with leftover laughter, "that we are children. They think we are weak because we are young. They think we will surrender because their numbers are bigger and their ships are shinier." He walked to the window that looked out over the city of Seoul, rebuilt 3 times after 3 different wars. In the distance, mountains rose up, green and permanent. His ancestors had fought in those mountains. His children had played in their shadows. "They have no idea," Admiral said quietly. "They have no idea what they just did." He turned back to his officers. His face was no longer amused. It was hard, like stone, like the mountains outside. "Prep the reserves," he ordered, "all of them." General raised an eyebrow. "All of them, sir. That is every citizen over the age of 16. "I know what it is," Admiral said. "We have been preparing for this moment for 3 generations. Our grandparents knew this day would come. They built the training programs. They hid the weapons. They taught their children, and their children taught us." He smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "The aliens think they are declaring war on a small, weak species. They are about to learn that they have declared war on 8 billion soldiers." Vice Admiral stood up. "What about the colonies, sir? New has 200,000 people. They will be hit first." "Send word to Colonel's network," Admiral said. "Tell them to begin Protocol Winter. The colonists know what to do." Colonel nodded. She had spent 10 years building resistance networks on every human colony. Farmers who could build bombs. Teachers who could coordinate attacks. Children who could carry messages through checkpoints. Every single person trained, ready, waiting for this exact moment. Admiral looked at the screen one more time, at the frozen image of, and his confident, cold face. "Send a message to the conquered," he said. "Tell them we refuse. Tell them we will not surrender a single world, a single person, a single grain of rice. Tell them," he paused, thinking. "Tell them we accept their declaration of war. And tell them we are looking forward to teaching them what that word really means." The message was sent. Across the galaxy, 5 alien civilizations prepared their fleets, confident in their coming victory. On Earth, 8 billion humans smiled. The war had begun. In the war room of the command ship, Supreme Commander studied the holographic map of human space. It was small, so very small compared to the vast territories of the conquered. A handful of colonies scattered around one average star. Nothing impressive, nothing threatening. "Our combined fleet numbers 12 million vessels," his advisor said. "The humans have perhaps 60,000. Their technology is primitive. They still use chemical propulsion on some of their smaller craft. This war will be finished before it truly begins." Nodded slowly. He had conquered 17 species in his long life. Some had fought. Most had surrendered when they saw the size of the conquered fleet. The smart ones understood that resistance was pointless against such overwhelming force. "Begin with the colony called New," ordered. "It is their largest settlement outside their home system. When it falls, the humans will understand their situation." 3,000 ships jumped through space toward a small blue planet on the edge of human territory. They expected to find frightened colonists ready to surrender. They did not expect what they found. On Earth, in a small office filled with screens and data, Strategic Analyst O was explaining something very important to the United Command. She was young, only 28 years old, with glasses that she pushed up her nose when she was nervous. She had spent her entire adult life studying alien species, learning their histories, understanding how they thought. Now, all that knowledge mattered more than ever. "The Galactic Conquered has conquered hundreds of species," she said, pointing to images on her screen. "But they have never fought a species like us. They have never fought a species." General leaned forward. "Explain that term for those who do not know it." Nodded and changed the image to show a classification chart. The galaxy ranks planets by how dangerous they are for life. Category 1 is the safest. Perfect temperature, no predators, stable weather. The is Category 2. Most species in the conquered come from Category 3 or 4 worlds. She paused and took a breath. Earth is Category 12. Admiral raised an eyebrow. What does that mean in practical terms? It means our planet is a nightmare, said. By galactic standards, Earth is almost uninhabitable. We have extreme temperatures from frozen poles to burning deserts. We have storms that can destroy cities. We have thousands of diseases that mutate constantly. We have predators in every environment. We have earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, droughts. She smiled slightly. And we did not just survive all of this. We became the dominant species on our planet. We evolved to handle everything Earth threw at us. Vice Admiral looked thoughtful. So you are saying the aliens are soft? Not soft exactly, said. They are adapted to their environments just like we are, but their environments are gentle. A soldier needs 12 hours of sleep every cycle. They cannot function in temperatures below 10 degrees or above 30 degrees. Their immune systems have never faced serious disease. They have never needed to develop endurance because they never had to chase prey across long distances or run from predators for hours. She brought up new images showing human soldiers in various extreme conditions. Mountains covered in ice, deserts that boiled in the sun, jungles thick with danger. Humans can function on 4 hours of sleep for extended periods. We can operate in temperatures from -40 to +50 degrees. Our bodies can heal from injuries that would kill most species. We can run for hours without stopping. We eat food that would poison most aliens. We drink alcohol, which is literally a toxic substance, for fun. The room was quiet as everyone absorbed this information. But that is not our greatest advantage, said. Our greatest advantage is how we think about war. She changed the screen again, showing records of alien conflicts. When the conquered species fight each other, they follow rules. Battles happen between professional armies in designated locations. Civilians are not involved. Wars are polite, almost formal. They fight until one side has a clear mathematical advantage, and then the losing side surrenders. Honor is preserved. Life continues. She looked around the room at the faces of officers who had fought in human wars. They understood what she was about to say. Humans do not fight like that, she said. We never have. We use every advantage, every dirty trick, every underhanded method we can imagine. We hit supply lines. We attack at night. We use the weather as a weapon. We turn civilians into soldiers and soldiers into ghosts. We do not stop fighting when the math says we should lose. We fight until we win or until there is no one left to fight. Admiral stood up and walked to the front of the room. Thank you, Analyst O. Your research confirms what we have always believed. He turned to face his officers. The conquered thinks they are facing a small, weak species that will break under pressure. They are wrong. They are facing the most dangerous species this galaxy has ever seen. We just never had a reason to show it before now. General smiled grimly. And the preparations, the civilian training programs. 3 generations of preparation, Admiral said. Every human over the age of 16 has received basic military training, survival skills, combat techniques, how to build weapons from common materials, how to communicate without technology, how to resist, how to hide, how to strike when the enemy is not looking. He paused. There are no civilians on Earth. There are only soldiers who have not yet been activated. At that moment, a communication came through from Nu. The fleet had arrived in orbit. 3,000 ships surrounded the small colony world, weapons ready, demanding surrender. Colonel stood up. Protocol Winter is active, sir. The colonists are ready. Admiral nodded. Then let us give them their first lesson. On Nu, the alien fleet waited for the humans to emerge from their cities with hands raised in surrender. Instead, they watched something strange happen. The cities emptied. Not slowly, with panicked crowds fleeing. Quickly, efficiently, like water draining from a sink. 200,000 people simply vanished into the mountains, the forests, the caves that riddled the planet's surface. When the ground forces landed, they found empty streets, empty buildings, empty lives abandoned without struggle. Food still sat on tables, lights still burned in windows, but there were no people anywhere. The commander reported to with confusion in his voice. "They have fled. Shall we pursue?" "Of course," replied. "Hunt them down. This will be simple." It was not simple. They had never hunted humans before. They did not understand that the empty cities were not a retreat. They were a trap. And night was coming. The sun set on new, and the soldiers made camp in the empty human cities. They were confident, even relaxed. The humans had run away like frightened animals. Tomorrow they would begin the hunt. Tonight they would rest. They did not know that humans could see in the dark. Not perfectly, but well enough. They did not know that humans had been hunting at night for 100,000 years, long before they built cities or flew to the stars. Colonel watched the alien camp from a hilltop 3 kilometers away. She used no technology, nothing that could be detected, just her eyes and a simple telescope made from glass and metal. Around her, hidden in the rocks and trees, waited 200 members of the new resistance. They were not soldiers by profession. There was a baker named who could throw a knife with perfect accuracy. A schoolteacher named Sarah who had memorized every tunnel and cave in the mountains. A grandmother named who had built explosives in her basement for 20 years, waiting for this moment. "They have posted guards," said quietly, "but only on the main streets. They do not understand how we move." "They cannot," replied. "Their species does not have our, what is the word, sneakiness." Smiled, stealth, and no, they do not. They evolved on open plains where hiding was impossible. They have never needed to be quiet. She lowered the telescope and looked at her people. Farmers, teachers, shopkeepers, children barely old enough to fight. Every one of them had trained for this since they could walk. Every one of them knew exactly what to do. "Remember the rules," she said. "Never fight in groups larger than 5. Never attack the same location twice. Never let them see your face. And never ever let them capture you alive. If capture is certain, you know what to do." Everyone nodded. They all carried small pills hidden in their teeth. A quick, painless death, better than what the aliens might do to prisoners. "Go," said. "Show them what humans can do in the dark." The night that followed would become famous across the galaxy. They called it the Night of Shadows. Humans called it the beginning. It started with small things. A guard who stepped away from his post to check a noise, never to return. A supply container that exploded without warning. A communication tower that simply stopped working, its cables cut by invisible hands. Then it grew worse. Soldiers woke to find their weapons missing, taken while they slept. Officers discovered maps and plans had been replaced with children's drawings of smiling humans. Food supplies were poisoned, not enough to kill, but enough to make an entire battalion too sick to move. And everywhere in the darkness between buildings, humans appeared like ghosts. They struck fast, silent, and disappeared before they could respond. Silver blood stained the streets, but there were no human bodies to find, no enemies to fight, just shadows and death. By morning they had lost 3,000 soldiers, not in battle, in their sleep in the dark, killed by enemies they never saw. The commander sent a panicked message to, "We cannot fight them this way. They do not follow any rules we understand. They attack and vanish. Our soldiers are afraid to sleep. We need reinforcements." Was confused. He had sent 50,000 of his best soldiers to Nu. 3,000 dead in one night should not be possible against an enemy with no ships, no heavy weapons, no formal army. "Hunt them during the day," he ordered. "Find their camps, destroy them." So they hunted. They sent search parties into the mountains, into the forests, following the humans who had fled. They used heat sensors, motion detectors, every piece of technology they had. They found nothing. The humans were always one step ahead, warned by networks of watchers using mirrors and birdsongs to communicate. Technology could be detected and blocked. A child whistling a tune could not. And then the weather changed. Humans had studied Nu for decades before settling there. They knew its seasons, its storms, its dangers. The did not. When the cold front swept down from the northern mountains, bringing rain that felt like ice, the alien soldiers were not prepared. Biology could not handle temperatures below 10 degrees. The rain was 5 degrees. Thousands of soldiers collapsed, their bodies shutting down, their silver skin turning gray and stiff. The humans, born on a world where such weather was normal, barely noticed the chill. Led her resistance fighters through the rain like it was nothing. They found soldiers huddled in buildings, unable to move, shaking and helpless. Some they killed quickly, others they captured. The captured aliens were treated well, given warmth and food, and then released with a message. Tell your commanders, tell them what happened, tell them this is just the beginning. After 30 cycles, the occupation force of 50,000 had been reduced to 8,000 survivors. They controlled nothing. They held nothing. They were surrounded by an enemy they could not see, could not catch, could not understand. The survivors retreated to their ships in orbit, broken and terrified. On Earth, Admiral recorded a message for the Galactic Concord. He sat alone in a simple room, his old face calm and serious. To the Supreme Commander of the Forces, he began, to the members of the Galactic Concord, you have received the survivors of your new invasion force. You have heard their reports. Now listen to me. He leaned forward slightly. You looked at our short and saw weakness. But short lives mean we learn fast, adapt fast, change fast. You looked at our fragile bodies and saw vulnerability. But those bodies can survive cold, heat, hunger, and pain that would kill any of your soldiers. You looked at our small numbers and saw an easy target. But every single human is a weapon. Every child, every elder, every farmer and teacher and shopkeeper. His voice grew harder. You declared war on a species that has been at war since we first existed. We fought our planet. We fought our predators. We fought each other. We have never stopped fighting. It is in our blood, in our bones, in every cell of our bodies. He stood up slowly. Send your fleets, send your armies. We have been preparing for this war since the first human lifted a stone against something that wanted to kill them. You wanted war, he smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. You have no idea what war is, but you will learn, we will teach you. The message spread across the galaxy. Trillions of beings watched the old human speak, watched the strange expression on his face, and felt something they had never felt before. Fear. The war was no longer going according to plan. The Galactic Concord did not accept defeat easily. After the disaster on Nu, they committed everything they had. 12 million ships from 5 civilizations gathered at the edge of human space. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Supreme Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the endless rows of warships stretch across the darkness of space. Each ship was a masterpiece of technology, built by species who had mastered space travel when humans were still living in caves. This time, he said to his officers, we will not underestimate them. No ground invasions. We will destroy their worlds from orbit. We will burn their colonies until nothing remains. They cannot fight what they cannot reach. The plan was simple, overwhelming force from a safe distance. No need to face those terrifying human fighters on the ground. But humans had never been good at following enemy plans. Vice Admiral commanded Earth's primary battle fleet, 60,000 ships against 12 million. The math was impossible. Any normal species would have surrendered. Gathered her captains for one final meeting before the battle. She was a small woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many friends die. She had been a soldier for 40 years. The aliens think they know what we will do, she said. They expect us to run, to hide, to fight defensively. They are wrong. She pointed to the holographic map showing the enemy fleet. We are going to attack, not their small ships, not their flanks. We are going directly for their command vessels, their flagships, their leaders. A young captain raised his hand. Admiral, that is a suicide mission. We cannot fight through 12 million ships. Nodded slowly. Yes, many of us will die, perhaps most of us, but this is what the aliens do not understand about humans. We are not afraid to die for something we believe in. They live 3,000 years. Every death is a tragedy they cannot accept. We live 80 years if we are lucky. We have always known death was close. We have made peace with it. She looked at each face in the room. I will not order anyone to follow me. This is a choice. If you wish to stay behind to protect no one will think less of you. No one moved. No one spoke. Every captain simply nodded, accepting what was coming. The battle began 3 hours later. The conquered fleet advanced in perfect formation, confident in their numbers. They expected the humans to scatter, to try to escape. Instead, the human fleet burned straight toward them at maximum speed. The aliens fired first, their advanced weapons tearing through space. Human ships exploded by the hundreds, but the humans did not slow down. They did not turn. They accelerated. His voice came over every human communication channel. All ships, remember why we fight. Remember who we protect. Let them remember this day forever. The human fleet crashed into the enemy formation like a fist. Small human ships flew directly into larger alien vessels, their pilots ejecting at the last moment. Or not ejecting at all, choosing to ride their ships into the enemy and die with their hands on the controls. Boarding parties of human marines launched themselves across the void in tiny pods, slamming into alien hulls and cutting their way inside. They fought in corridors and engine rooms, spaces too small for the aliens' advanced weapons to work properly. Knife fights in the dark, grenades in crowded chambers, human screaming battle cries that echoed through alien ships like the voices of demons. The conquered had never experienced anything like this. Their soldiers were professionals, trained and equipped, but they were not prepared for enemies who smiled while bleeding, who kept fighting with broken bones and missing limbs, who seemed to welcome death if it meant taking an enemy with them. On the planet, a world the conquered had held for 10,000 years, Commander Bora led a ground assault. 10,000 humans against 500,000 alien defenders. Before the attack, she broadcast a single message. They have numbers, we have fury. The battle lasted 72 hours. Bora's soldiers did not sleep for any of them. They rotated in shifts, 4 hours fighting, 2 hours resting, then back into the chaos. The aliens could not match this pace. Their bodies demanded rest that the humans simply ignored. When the fighting ended, belonged to humanity. Bora had lost 4,000 soldiers. The aliens had lost everything. Back in Earth's command center, Dr. Sung worked without rest to decrypt captured conquered communications. She was not a soldier, but the military needed her skills now more than ever. Understanding the enemy was as important as fighting them. What she found in those communications changed everything. Admiral, she reported, her voice shaking with exhaustion and excitement. The enemy is breaking, not just militarily, psychologically. Their soldiers are refusing deployment orders. 3 of the 5 conquered species have already sent secret messages asking for separate peace. They want out of this war. She showed him the translations of alien messages. The humans do not stop. They do not surrender. They do not negotiate. They fight until they win or they die, and even dying does not seem to frighten them. What kind of monsters have we awakened? Admiral read the messages slowly. Another species would have felt pride. He only felt tired. We are not monsters, he said quietly. We are survivors. That is all we have ever been. But he understood what these messages meant. The enemy was afraid. For the first time in 40,000 years, the great civilizations of the galaxy were afraid. The war continued for 3 more months. Every battle followed the same pattern. The aliens had superior technology, superior numbers, superior everything. The humans had something that could not be measured or counted. They had the willingness to do anything, sacrifice anything, endure anything to win. Slowly, the conquered fleet shrank, not because humans destroyed more ships, but because ships stopped coming. Alien crews refused to fight. Alien worlds pulled their forces back to protect themselves. The alliance that had ruled the galaxy was crumbling, broken not by weapons but by fear. Vice Admiral died in the final major battle, her flagship ramming an enemy carrier to allow her fleet to escape. Her last words were broadcast to every human ship. "Tell my children I did my duty. Tell them I was not afraid." When the news reached Earth, there was no celebration, only grief and a quiet determination to make her sacrifice mean something. The war was almost over, but the final lesson was yet to come. 6 months after the war began, Supreme Commander sent a message to Earth. It was not a demand. It was not a threat. It was a request. He wanted to meet. Admiral agreed to the meeting. It would happen on the same station where everything started, the great orbital parliament above Prion 4. The same chamber where Park had stood alone while aliens pronounced humanity's death sentence. The journey took 3 days. Admiral used that time to read reports, review casualty numbers, and think about everything that had happened. Humanity had won, but the cost had been terrible. Millions dead, colonies burned, ships lost, families destroyed. And yet they had survived, more than survived. They had proven something to the galaxy and to themselves. Colonel traveled with him, along with Commander Bora and 100 other officers who had led the war. General was too badly wounded to make the trip. He had lost both legs but refused to stop commanding until the last battle was won. When they arrived at the station, it was empty. No representatives from the 5 conquered species. No guards, no officials, no observers. Just alone, waiting in the great chamber where this all began. The Supreme Commander looked different than Admiral remembered from the recordings. Smaller somehow. His silver skin had lost its glow. His black eyes showed something that had never seen in an alien before. He looked broken. "Thank you for coming," said. His voice was quiet, nothing like the commanding tone he had used 6 months ago. "I was not certain you would." "I almost did not," Admiral admitted. "Many of my people wanted me to refuse. They wanted me to continue fighting until your species was destroyed." Nodded slowly. "I would have understood that choice. We would have deserved it." They stood facing each other across the empty chamber. 2 old soldiers, both tired, both carrying the weight of millions of deaths. "I have a question," said finally. "Before we discuss terms, I need to understand something." "Ask." "How?" The word came out like a wound. "How did you defeat us? We had everything. Numbers, technology, experience, resources. We have conquered hundreds of species across 40,000 years. None of them could stand against us. How did you do it?" Admiral considered the question carefully. He thought about O and her research on. He thought about dying with her hands on the controls of her ship. He thought about the farmers and teachers of Nu, fighting in the dark with knives and homemade explosives. He thought about every human who had ever looked at impossible odds and refused to accept defeat. "You made one mistake," he said finally. "Just one, but it was enough." Waited, his black eyes fixed on space. "You looked at us and saw our short," continued. "You saw our fragile bodies, our small territory, our young civilization, and you thought you saw weakness. But those things are not our weakness. They are the forge that made us what we are." He began to walk slowly around the chamber, his footsteps echoing in the empty space. "Every generation of humans has known war. We have fought each other, fought our planet, fought disease and disaster and death itself. We have never had peace, not truly, not for more than a moment. Struggle is all we know. It is written in our blood, in our bones, in the very structure of our minds. He stopped and turned back to face. You declared war on the only species in the galaxy that was already at war. You threatened extinction to a people who have faced extinction every single day of their existence. You thought fear would make us surrender, but we have never known a world without fear. We have learned to use it, to push through it, to transform it into strength. Was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. We did not know, we could not have known. Nothing in our history prepared us for you. No, Admiral agreed. It did not. And that is why we are here now, with your fleet destroyed and your alliance shattered, while humanity still stands. He walked closer close enough to see his own reflection in those dark alien eyes. But I did not come here to gloat. I did not come here to demand revenge. I came here because the war is over, and now we must decide what comes next. He extended his hand, palm up toward. The alien stared at the hand without understanding. What is this gesture? It is called a handshake, said. Humans use it to seal agreements, to show trust, to indicate that we are no longer enemies. After everything we did, after we tried to destroy your entire species. Yes, after all of that, Admiral did not lower his hand. We could continue this war. We could hunt your species to extinction, burn your worlds as you tried to burn ours. Many of my people want exactly that, but I am tired of death. I am tired of watching young people die for the mistakes of old people. I am tired of hate. His voice softened. We are a violent species. We know this about ourselves, but we are also capable of mercy, of forgiveness, of choosing to build instead of destroy. That choice is what makes us human. Looked at the extended hand for a long moment. Then slowly, uncertainly, he reached out and took it. His grip was weak, his silver skin cold against warmth. I accept your mercy, he said. On behalf of my people and the conquered, the war is ended, you have won. Admiral nodded. Then let us build something better from the ashes, something that does not require fear or force to survive. 1 year later, humanity was granted full membership in the reformed Galactic Council, not as the youngest species, to be watched and controlled, as equals, as protectors, as the species that had taught the galaxy that strength was not measured in numbers or technology, but in the willingness to stand up and fight for what mattered. The still existed, their civilization wounded but surviving. They had learned humility for the first time in 40,000 years. Other species looked at humans with respect now, and sometimes with fear, but mostly with wonder. How did such a small, fragile, short-lived species produce such incredible fighters, such determined survivors, such impossible victories? The answer was simple, though most aliens never truly understood it. Humans had always been fighting. From the moment the first human ancestor stood up on 2 legs and faced a predator with nothing but a rock and determination, they had been at war. War against nature, against each other, against death itself. The galaxy had just given them a new enemy to fight. And humans always found a way to win. On Earth, in the rebuilt city of Sol, Admiral retired to a small house in the mountains. He planted a garden and watched the seasons change. Sometimes he visited, and he told them stories of the war, of the brave people who had fought and died so that humanity could live. He never called humans heroes. He never called the aliens villains. He simply told the truth, that survival required sacrifice, and sometimes the smallest, weakest creatures in the universe turned out to be the strongest of all. The stars continued to shine, indifferent to the struggles of the beings below. But among those stars, a new truth had been written, a truth that would echo through galactic history for to come. Never underestimate especially not humans.